Excuse me, this cabinet has been sitting in my garage for the last few months, just haunting me because I don't know what to do with it until today. I have some ideas, I'm feeling good about it. Let's hope it works out. Welcome back to This Mess. My name is Jorge if you're new here, and I love vintage shopping, thrift shopping, because I will often find incredible pieces such as this cabinet. Now it turns out it's not just any old cabinet, it is a vintage record player slash stereo slash radio, just a media cabinet in general. I'm sure very high tech for its time, but unfortunately it is no longer in working order. I poked around to see if it can be fixed. I don't think it can. No worries, we're gonna keep the integrity of this piece. We're gonna reinterpret it in a nice way. We're gonna keep the wood. We're not gonna paint it, which I'm not against painting, but I don't think this is the one to be painted. Anyways, I think it's gonna be fun. No more rambling, come on. So this is it. This is the cabinet that we are working with. Overall, in good structural condition. Cosmetically, it has seen better days. As you can see, we are missing the two doorknobs. Might have a little bit of water damage here. And overall, just the finish seems to have been faded away. Maybe it was exposed to the sun for a long time. Who knows? But overall, I still think it's a charmer. Now, in terms of the interior seems to be in great condition, with the exception of the actual electronics that do not work. Trust me, the cables are literally crumbling, so it cannot be salvaged, but it's still pretty neat. No worries, we are going to sort of pay homage to this in my new design. Really quickly before we get into the makeover, I just want to show you some furniture pieces that I'm sort of looking at for inspiration. Now these are all by Gallery Half over in Los Angeles, which they sell antique slash vintage furniture pieces, very elegant. And notice that these are not limited to farmhouse. These can work with so many different styles and can really make a statement in a space. Now my plan of action for this cabinet is to strip it down, to bleach it, and just make it sort of a lighter, more natural wood finish, I would say. I'm not going to try to do some faux rustic finish or anything like that. That's just not what I'm going for here. But I do of course need to get rid of the old sound system, which I know is hard, trust me, but it served its time. It brought joy to some point. It had its life. However, it is literally falling apart as I touch it. Things are crumbling, the cables are horrible, but that's okay. We're gonna still play nod to this. I want to keep the front control panel, which you will see in the end. Everything else will pretty much turn into a shelf. This could maybe make a cute bar cabinet. So I'm just cleaning everything off with some hot water. Some people use TSP cleaner, which is good if you have really grimy furniture pieces. I probably should have done that, but just water was enough. Next up, I carefully took apart the sound system, which might look complicated, but it really wasn't. It's just a whole bunch of unscrewing things, honestly. But it's kind of interesting just taking this apart. It's so cool seeing how things kind of work together to make a sound system. Not that I would really know, although I was in electrical engineering program at school before architecture. I don't know, kind of cool seeing all this come together, or I guess come apart in this case. Alright, so I pretty much took everything apart, and this is what I salvaged, what I will be reusing, and it is the cover. I think it is actual copper. So that's the cover, and then the glass that I went ahead and cleaned. And so what I was thinking is, so that will be a shelf now, the bottom will be a shelf, the middle I'm using as a drawer, and I was thinking about maybe putting the cover here. I think that could look pretty nice, so I'm gonna do that, and then yeah, we'll come back to this. Right now I need to strip the exterior because I need to let that sit for a few hours. To be honest with you, I have never stripped furniture before, so this is a first for me, and I'm using citrus strip just because it's one that I have seen some people use before, so I thought I would give it a try. And I'm just following the directions on the bottle, which says to, of course, wear some gloves, some glasses or goggles, and just apply with an old brush that you don't mind throwing away. I'm just using an old chip brush in this case, and I'm just applying a thick layer, and I do want to leave this overnight to sort of do its thing. The longer you leave it, the better they recommend. So I'm just putting some plastic over the places where I'm putting it, and I'm just working in sections here because I feel like this stuff kind of dries a little bit fast, so I'm just working this section by section until I cover the entire cabinet. Morning. So it is the following day and I just let the stripper do its thing overnight. I'm going to remove it here shortly, but also one thing I did do last night before, or off camera I should say, is I cut some shelves, just very basic rectangles on the table saw that are going to fit the I guess partitions where the old equipment used to be. Nothing too crazy. So again, I am working section by section and I'm using a putty knife to scrape off the finish slash stripper, and I did lay down some papers to sort of catch all of this because it is slimy and kind of messy, I'm not gonna lie with you. As a reminder, this is my first time stripping furniture, so I can't give you a full advice, but what I will say is to just have a little bit of patience. I'm just using my putty knife to remove as much as I can. Now for those harder to reach details or little nooks or things like that, I'm using this plastic brush, which is recommended for the instructions of the bottle, but there are a lot of videos that show you how to strip furniture. But overall, I would say it's fine, but it's just a little bit messy. Keep that in mind. Unfortunately, I lost footage of this and I apologize, but I used some mineral spirits per instructions of the bottle to remove any just excess gunk that was kind of just still lingering around. Alright, so I went ahead and cleaned everything up, and let me just tell you that was a big mess. It was actually very annoying. But anyways, everything's cleaned up, and I'm just going to let this fully dry before moving on to the next step. Alright, next step. Now, as you can see, the wood is still a little bit red, and it probably is still from the stain. They probably stained this red. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bleach this. So I'm just going to take regular household bleach and just paint this and let it dry, do another coat, and just repeat it until I get the color that I want. And then maybe we'll have to do some other things, but we'll go from there. As I mentioned, we're just working with regular household bleach, which I'm just brushing on with an old chip brush that I don't mind throwing away afterwards. Now here's my disclaimer, and that is to make sure that you're wearing proper protection. We want to make sure we're taking care of our bodies. Make sure you're wearing your gloves, your goggles, a respirator, and or are working in a well-ventilated area. Now here I am putting the first coat, and I'm just doing the exterior. Remember, I have something different planned for the interior, so I'm not too concerned about the interior right now. And I will say that you really won't see the effect of this until it fully dries on the wood, which might take a few hours. It just depends on the temperature outside, the humidity, so keep that in mind. So this is what it looks like the second day after 2 coats. As you can see, you still see some of that red in some areas, but overall you're seeing a much lighter, more natural toned wood. Kind of looks like white oak, to be honest with you. Kind of nice. In this case, I went ahead and did a 3rd coat of bleach just to really get rid of that stubborn red that's still left behind. Kind of interesting that when you wet the wood, you still see, I guess, some of the splotchiness or the imperfections, but once this fully dries, it looks a little bit more cohesive. This is what it looks like after the 3rd coat has dried. Much better, I would say. Still a little splotchy. We'll take care of that in a moment. First, let's clean up the hardware, because with the bleach, it sort of rusts the hardware a little bit, the hinges. So I'm going to just take some mineral spirits to clean that up as best as I can, which ended up working for me. To make this project even more exciting, let's do some sanding, because when you bleach wood, it raises the grain a little bit. So we want to make it smooth. I'm taking my very affordable orbital sander. I will link it down below, the cheapest one that you will find, great for the price. But I'm just lightly sanding it with 220 grit sandpaper just to make it smooth. I'm not going hard at it, I'm just lightly sanding just to, again, make it smooth. Also using my sanding block to get into those smaller details. I know this project has been a little bit of time work. At this point, I was a little bit annoyed, I'm not gonna lie. But I think it was worth it in the end, which you will see. Next up, I thought I would try a cool trick by Katie over in Salvage by Casa. I will link her channel below. Amazing furniture flips that she does. But one trick to make the wood grain or the wood tone a little bit more cohesive is what she will do is she'll get some white paint, really water it down with some water, obviously, and then brush it onto the raw wood. Let that sit for about 5 minutes, and then you can come back with a lint-free rag. In this case, I'm just using a t-shirt and wiping it all off. It's a subtle difference, but what this does is, again, it makes this wood grain a little bit more cohesive, especially if you have areas of like redwood in there and some more yellow spots, which is what I had in this case. So I did that to the whole furniture piece, just working one section at a time because the paint will dry and soak up into the wood. Keep in mind that the color of wood changes when it is wet, and in this case, since I'm essentially just wetting it with this whitewash mixture, it's looking a little darker than what I thought, and I was not gonna lie, feeling a little bit discouraged. It was reminding me of like a farmhouse cabinet, which there's nothing wrong with, it's just not the vibe that I'm going for here. But I just trusted the process and just let it do its thing. I probably could have let the paint wash sit for a few more minutes, but that's fine. As I wipe it off and let that fully dry, it's starting to come together. Once complete, I allowed the wood to fully dry before applying a final finish. In this case, I'm using Minwax Paste Finishing Wax. Never used this before. Essentially, I applied it on with a lint-free rag, another t-shirt, and kind of just like wiped it onto the wood grain, kind of going with the direction of the grain, or the wood grain I would say. And it's kind of a little concerned because it looked darker as I was applying it on there, but once it started to dry, I noticed that the wood became lighter and more just like natural dry raw wood, which is what I was going for. And no, I did not forget about the interior, which I ended up painting black, which was kind of a bold move, kind of maybe unexpected, but I think it was a nice contrast to the exterior, which is the light wood. I've done a lot of painting furniture here on this channel, so I'm not going to go too crazy, but essentially I just painted it black. I applied some primer first to making sure I get some good coverage. I did leave a little bit of red just to pay homage to the original cabinet, which you will then see me paint later. It was just a design choice, but nothing too crazy, just painting the cabinet. Once that fully dried, I did do 2 coats, or 3 maybe. I then applied some polyacrylic to protect the finish. I must say it is very satisfying removing the tape at the end of a project, nothing like some clean, crisp blinds. Overall, this project did take longer than expected, lots of techniques, a little bit overwhelming, a little frustrating at times for me, I'm not gonna lie, but I think the result was worth it. Here you are seeing me putting the new doorknobs. I went ahead and applied that front for the old stereo. I did end up painting the inside of the doors black, as what you will see, but that does it for this project. No more rambling, let's just take a look at the final result and let me know what you think about it. Kind of different, I would say. Thanks for sticking around to the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed. Let me know what your thoughts are on this cabinet. I think it's in a much better state than when it was before, and whether I keep it or not, let's hope I have room. I think it's gonna find an amazing home, and yeah, comment, subscribe, like, all that great stuff that helps us out. Check out my other DIYs if you haven't already, or if you have, watch them again. Anyways, have an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.